Hello and welcome to my tutorial. Today I'm going to talk about how to set up a Wacom Intimus Pro for use with Cinema 4D. I'm also going to give some recommendations on what you should set your hotkeys up as for Cinema 4D, as well as address some of the issues that some Wacom users have had with a left-click delay when dragging. Like right here, some of those issues. I'm going to address that as well. But the first thing I want to do is plug in your Wacom tablet. And if this is your first time, you're going to plug that in and it'll download the drivers and should do all that automatically. And you'll know it's done when it pops this up here. And it may take like a minute to do the full process. But then you're going to check to make sure you have the latest version. And if you don't, then just go to the Wacom website. Go to wacom.com, then go to support, then click drivers, and it'll bring you to this page right here. And you can just scroll down to this spot right here if you're using the latest driver with the Wacom Intuos Pro, and click download for Windows or for a Mac. And I'm going to put this link in the description so you can just click on that if you want. And then what we're going to do is once you have all that and you're up to date, you're going to go over and you're going to click Cinema 4D and we're going to launch the application. It'll just take a little bit. Get that to open up. There we go. Now once Cinema 4D opens, what you're going to do is you're going to go up here, you're going to click Edit, go down to Preferences. Now once that's open, we're going to click on Input Devices, and we're just going to turn on Graphics Tablet with a check mark and turn on High Res Tablet. Now since your tablet, if you have an Intimus Pro, it has a very high resolution screen, which means you're able to really move your mouse around with very pinpoint detail. Now, if your tablet is having some difficulty and trouble with moving the mouse around, and there's some problems coming up, you can turn that off, and your tablet now will move a little bit more jumpy, but it's very difficult to notice. But I keep mine turned on because I don't have any troubles with it. So, but if you do have any trouble, you can turn that off, and that might help to fix it. But what you're going to do is after you have that set up, Cinema 4D is pretty much at this point ready to go. There's really not too much to do when it comes to making it work correctly with the tablet. But the next problem that you'll notice, which most people have, is I'm going to just build a material here quick. And we're going to go in the color picker, and if we try and click and drag, you're going to notice there's this very big delay, and it's like it sometimes doesn't even go. That's a very big trouble, and it gets pretty annoying. And that's because right off the bat, your Wacom is set up to do a hold to right click command. That means if I hold the button down, it put a circle, and when I let up, it does a right click. And for a lot of people, and like me, that's not something that we really want. That's definitely not something that I wanted. I wanted to have a button on the side to set to right click so I could do it a lot quicker. So what you do to set that up is we're going to close this out, and we're not going to save that. What we're going to do is we're going to go, if you're on a Windows 8, to this bottom corner, and then you're going to right click, and that would be a hold and then let go if you just started. And then we're going to go to Control Panel, or you could just use a mouse to get to this point. And then you're going to click on Hardware and Sound, and then you're going to do Wacom Tablet Properties. You're going to click that once, and now you're going to open this window here. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to our pen right here, and what we're going to do is we're going to customize this up. So we're on Pen and then All Other. You're going to make sure you're on both of these here, and you're going to click on this top button here, the top button on your Wacom pen. You're going to click on that. You're going to go up to Clicks and then set that to be right click, and the bottom one you'll do click and you'll set that to middle click. This is how I like to have my pen set up for use with Cinema 4D, but if you don't like it that way, you can definitely change it. I highly recommend experiment, change it around, make this however you're more comfortable with and whatever fits your creative style. But for me, this is what works for me best, so that's what I'll stick with. And then what we're going to do is after we have this set up, we're going to turn off this hold to right click command because it can be very annoying, especially when you're trying to do fine details. It causes a lot of problems. So what we're going to do is we're going to head back over here and we'll re-pull this up by now our new right click command. So we're going to push that top button down here again, and we're going to open Control Panel because that was our right click, and it'll pop this back up. And we're going to go to Hardware Sound again if you didn't already have it open, and then we're just going to click down here. I closed the back window because I did it twice, but just to make sure. And what I'm going to go down to now is Pen and Touch. So we're going to click that, and that's going to open up this area. And you're going to leave single tap, that's going to be fine. Double tap, I leave that a default. but press and hold. We're going to click on that, and we're going to click on Settings. Now this is going to bring up our double tap menu or press and hold menu. So if I click and hold and let go, it does a right click, click and hold again, right clicks again. What we're going to do is we're going to click disable. So we're going to uncheck that. So enable press and hold for right click, we're going to turn that off. Then we're going to test to make sure it's acting. I'm holding down, nothing happens. Notice when I tap though, it still does this these little symbols, like these little tap things. And when I left click on the mouse, I'm going to go over to my mouse now. That doesn't happen. That's only when you're using the tablet. And some people just don't like the look of that. And that can cause also some problems because that your computer's like reading this as a touch gesture, which has just caused a lot of problems, especially in Windows 8. So now that we have this off, we're going to click OK. And we're going to apply that. And now make sure, use the pen button as a right-click equivalent. Because if I turn this off and click Apply, when we push our top pen button like we had set up for right-click, it won't work. Like I'm pushing, it pops it up, but it's not actually giving the command. So what we're going to do is keep that on, apply it. So now when I push that button, the right-click actually counts. So now we have that on. Use the top of the pen as the eraser or an ink where available. Highly recommend to keep that on, especially in Photoshop, because it's nice to be able to flip the pen around and use the back of it as an eraser when needed. But after you do these steps, this is pretty much all it. The only other thing we're going to do is we're going to hop up to Flicks right here. Make sure that's turned off if you don't want any kind of touch gestures. Like you can scroll with 2 fingers or swipe up to close a window or swipe down to open a window or however that works. And that's caused a lot of problems for me because you keep bumping things. I just didn't really like that on. I didn't want to use any touch. I just want to use the pen. So I have that turned off for me. But once you have all that, Flicks is turned off, and press and hold in settings is turned to off. Enable press and clicking, make sure that is unchecked. Click OK, apply it if you can, and then press OK. Now that that's done, you're going to open Cinema 4D back up again, or I don't even have to do that. Just notice still there is still a delay, like the button's not there when I hold down. It's not right clicking anymore, which is very nice. But the problem is when I click and drag, there's still a noticeable delay. It's still popping over. It's just not working out right. So what we're going to do is we're going to open Cinema 4D up back again, and I'm just going to use this as an example. I'm going to go to the color picker again. Just going to load that up. There we go. I'm going to open this up. I'm going to go as a color again, and when I drag, yep, there it is. It's still having some trouble. So here's how we're going to fix that. I'm going to go to open back up my Wacom tablet properties if this is still open. If you don't have this open yet, just go to your control panel, go under hardware and sound, and then click Wacom tablet properties, and that's going to pull this up for you. So what then you're going to do is you're going to go over to pen, grip pen, all other, and then you're going to click on mapping right here. And then you're going to see use Windows link. We're going to click that check mark to turn that off. Now what this does is it's forcing the tablet to run under a kind of like a new refresh system, not the built-in Windows touch system, which seems to mess everything up. We're going to have use Windows link turned off. Now the key too is if you have other programs, because you can customize a different tablet layout for each separate program, you're going to make sure you go through each one. So you can see here on all other I have it off, but under Cinema 4D it's still on. So I'm going to turn that off there as well. And it's off on all my other programs. So now that we did that, that alone is going to fix a ton of things. So I'm going to close out of this, pull this down, and now notice when I tap, there's nothing there. There's no of those little raindrop kind of little things tapping around. And if I hold, no right click things popping up, that fixed all that. And it also fixed, when I click and drag, it fixed the delay. So if I go to my color picker, go drag, it's instantly right on. And that had a lot of trouble because I would try and go from a dark red to like a lighter shade, and I'd pull and it would get stuck, and I'd have to go all the way and pull back, but now it's just right on it. So that makes it much nicer. I'm super happy that I was able to figure that out. And extra thanks to the guy on YouTube who I was watching a video on who showed me how to figure that out. That was really nice of him to put up there. And I'll put a link in the description to his website so he can get a little bit of a thank you from that. But after you have that, you pretty much are ready to roll on Cinema 4D, except for now the recommendations I have for some of the hotkeys. So what I'd say first off is you're going to want to create a new like Cinema 4D kind of save area for that. So what I mean is you're going to create your own kind of, you don't want to work under all other, you want to usually customize for just that program. So when I open up Cinema 4D, it'll have a different set of hotkeys. You can see over here, I'll go through the basics. The bottom button is going to be your radial menu. So when you push that, it'll open your radial menu. You push it again, and it'll close it. So I'm going to hold down I'm going to rest my finger on the button, and that's going to pull up this kind of like little cheat sheet that shows you what finger you're holding down and what button. So the bottoms are radial. The second one up with this line on it is going to be your Alt key, and so that means I can hold down that button and then left click but push down the tablet and drag to move around my scene. So I'm just going to put in a cube. Just go up and click the cube to give us something to look at. So we just click and then hold down the Alt key and drag. So I'm going to like keep my pen in the air, push down that right Alt button, or not right, the left Alt button I believe it is in Cinema 4D. I'm going to hold that button down, and that's what I have it bound as. And I'm just going to pull around, and that's going to move. The next one up is going to be Control. Oh, and I'm going to touch on this a little bit more, is while holding down the Alt button and left clicking and dragging, I'm going to move around my scene. Now if I hold down the bottom pen button, the one we have set to middle click, while my pen is still just hovering above the tablet, not clicking down, holding that bottom button while holding left Alt will pull and slide around my screen. Or I could push the top button, which is set to be our right click, so I can right click and open up little properties and stuff like that. If I hold down the right Alt button and then click that, then that's my zoom in and out. So I can zoom in and out, do this one to move around, and use this one to move. So I find that is a really good combination to set up for your system to let it slide around and to move. It's a very good quick way, so I can instantly pan around here, left click, turn, go up, zoom out, readjust. It's really a great way to get in and out, and it just seems to be a very fast way of working, because when I first started I had to constantly be reaching for my mouse to move because the default doesn't work like this. So I highly recommend setting that up. The next button we're going to go to is Control, and with this it's just Control, then I can copy and copy and copy again, just holding down that button, left click and dragging and doing just like we're used to doing with a regular mouse and keyboard. And then I can hold down, like click to drag, hold down shift, and then it'll constrain that. And then I have my undo button set to here to undo these things, or press the top button to redo. And then at the very, very top, I have a pan scroll feature, which means if I'm in a hierarchical system, such say reflectance, and I add something to scroll through, if I hold this button down, I can left click with just by tapping down and dragging and sliding, and I can scroll through the inventory. It's a really easy way to scroll through things. It's like using the mouse wheel. But now I'm going to show you how to actually set these up. So what we're going to do is we're going to head back to our Wacom tablet properties. Now to show you how to get there real quick, we're going to go over to the bottom menu. We're going to right click by pushing the top button on our pen. We're going to go to Control Panel if you're on Windows 8, Hardware and Sound, and then we're going to go to Wacom tablet properties. And then what we're going to do while we're in here is, if you don't already have Cinema 4D on here, you're going to click plus add, and you're going to go through this, and this is my running applications at the moment. Right now I'm going to click on Cinema 4D. That's the program. You have to have the program running to do this. Cinema 4D is open and running. I'm going to click on that and click OK. I'm going to click cancel because I already have it, but that's going to create a little icon like this, like all these other programs. So that means when you open Cinema 4D, it's going to remember that application and remember your hotkey customization and all that per application. So it's extremely powerful, and you can customize this for each application, go from Photoshop back to Cinema 4D, and each key you push is going to do different things for that specific application. So with that said, we're going to click on Cinema 4D first to make sure we're working in there, then Pen Grip. And if this is your first time creating it, you're already going to have your right click and middle click already set up, because that's how we have all other applications. This is like a default. If you have all other, that means any application besides these is going to behave the same way as this is set, unless you have it set to specify as to be differently. But since we already have Cinema 4D up, I'm just going to check, right click, middle click, that's all in there. We already have that set up. We're going to go over next to, and this is a important thing, is functions. once we're in functions, we're going to have a list of sort of a picture of those buttons that are on the sides. You have the bottom, and you can go up all the way through, and go all the way to the top, all those different buttons. So this one here is the top button, touch on off, then comes pan scroll, precision mode, settings, and all that. Now notice how these are a little different. Radial menu, modifier, all control, and shift and stuff are the same, but I don't have precision mode here, and that's because I'm clicked under all other. I have to click on Cinema 4D. Then notice how they change now. My undo, redo, pan scroll, and keystroke undo, which I have never set this top one up yet. That could be any one that you'd like it to be, but right now I just leave that as the default undo, I believe it's set for. But what we're going to do for the bottom to set this up, so we're just going to go down here, click Radial Menu. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click Radial Menu to set it for that. Now we have this button here. We're going to click that, modifier. We're going to click on the modifiers. Then we're going to have the Alt button checked, and we're going to click that, yes, okay. And now we have Radial Menu as the bottom, then comes Alt. Then we're going to have controls. We're going to click this, then we're going to click modifier, click the checkbox for control, hit OK. Next one up is the Shift key. We're going to click that, modifier, make sure the Shift box is selected, and press OK. Next comes the undo key, and this one's a little bit more in depth. We're just going to go up to, we're going to click that. We're going to go up to keystroke, click, and now what we're going to do, I'm going to delete what's on here. You're going to click in this little menu right here, and you're going to hold down Control and then Z, because that's the undo command in Cinema 4D, and then it'll have that there, and then you can name it right here. I have it named as undo. I'm going to click OK, and then the next one up is redo, and we're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to go up, we're going to do keystroke. I'm going to delete these because they're right there. I'm going to do Control Y for redo, because that's the redo command in Cinema 4D, and then I'm going to name that as redo. Press OK. Now we have undo and redo both set up for up here, and then the pan scroll is simply just click once and then click pan scroll. Then it's going to ask you a speed. I leave it at the default in the middle. Press OK, and there you go. That's how you set up these hotkeys on the side, and that's what works best for me. Now comes a little bit more in depth. We're going to go into the Radial menu, and this is in Cinema 4D. So under the Radial menu, I'm going to show you kind of how this works. If we're in Cinema 4D, and I press this bottom button right here, I'm going to click that. It's going to pop up a menu every time I push that around where my mouse is. So I'm pushing to make it go away, push it again to make it come up. This is a super powerful, in-depth system inside of the Wacom tablet. So I'm pushing again to make it go away. So say I'm working on my cube, and if I push the button, it's going to pop it up, and now I have this list of like commands around this little tablet here. And what I have this set up to is if I press save, it'll do the command Control S. So I can click save, and it'll pop up a window for me to save it, just like I did Control S. So I'm going to cancel, and I'm going to do the same thing. Control S on my keyboard pops up the same thing. So I don't have to constantly be reaching off my tablet up the keyboard. If ever I want to save, just press the bottom thing, click save. The Radial menu is a powerful tool. So then I'm going to push that again. The next one I have is Wacom tablet properties, and if I push this, it'll open my Wacom tablet properties right down here. Since I already had it open, it actually closes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close these out. I'm going to press the Radial menu button. I'm going to click Wacom tablet properties again. Notice it opens it down here, and this is a super quick way to easily keep getting into it. So I highly recommend to have that there. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to push it again. I'm going to show you a few of the other things I have. I have U right here, and this means, just like in Cinema 4D editing, if I click on this cube and I press U, it's going to open up a menu, and then I can do UL for loop selection. It's one of the hotkeys that I like to have. So if I make this cube, I'm going to press E to quick go to selection tool. I'm going to make this, press C to make it editable, and we're under polygon mode, so I'm going to hold down the Alt key right here on my Wacom tablet quick shortcut, and then I'm going to click and drag to move around it so we can kind of see it better. There's a good spot. I'm going to push the bottom button to pan around and the top button to zoom in and out, and now I'm going to press U on the keyboard, U. And the interesting thing is on a Wacom tablet, this is why I highly recommend setting that up, is if you're on a mouse, you press U, you just let it sit there, and then you press L. But if you're on a Wacom tablet, and you move because it's so sensitive, just the slightest motion, like even as I'm sitting here, my hand's just moving because it's a natural tendency to have your hand constantly moving. So if I press U and I move just a hair, it makes it go away. So it's constantly coming up and going away. It's very hard to hit the L in time. You have to be very steady, but once you have it, then you can do like a loop selection like that. So this is what I have set up to make this a lot easier. I'm going to deselect that by clicking away, and I'm going to press the E on my keyboard to go back to my move tool. So what I have set up is if I go to my radial menu and I press the U, it opens up a list of U commands, and I have UL. So I push that, instant access to the loop selector. So radial menu, U, UL. So the way I set this up is I'm going to hop over, I'm going to press radial menu, and then I'm going to click Wacom Tablet Properties, going to head back there. You can go through the control panel if you need. And then once you're here, you're going to click Cinema 4D, Functions, or sorry, once you click Functions, then go to Cinema 4D. Then go under Radial Menu, and that's going to be right here. And this is the radial menu that you have to customize. So to set this up, I click here, and I click the spot where I want it. For me, I found that this spot right here works, the far left side in the middle. I'm going to click there, then I'm going to click Submit, then I'm going to click this little here, and I'm going to go down to Submenu. I'm going to check that to be on, and I'm going to name it Label U. Now once we're in there, we have this little graph because we made it hierarchy because it is a submenu, so we're going to click the U, and we're going to go down to another submenu. And I don't have anything else in here except this one. So you're just going to click on an empty space, like this one here, which I already have built. And then once we click that, we're going to go up, keystroke, and then type the keys. What are we going to push when I push this? It's going to do UL. And then once we have that, I name that UL, and then press OK, and then it's ready to go. So we just press the radial menu, U, UL. Then we have our loop selection. So now what we're going to do to go even further in depth is we're going to pop back down to here because we already have it open. We're going to go back to the radial menu, but we're going to go back to the top. So we're just going to click up here to go back to the top area instead of that bottom U menu. And we're going to have our move, rotate, and scale. And the way that I have this set up is instead of having to constantly having to reach up, press an E, R, and T to move to those different things, I just press on my radial menu button and have move, rotate, and scale already pre-selected. So if I go back to object mode, and I'm in scale mode right now, so I can just click and drag and I can scale them. I press my radial menu button, click move, and instantly it presses the E key automatically for me, and then I can move that around. Press it again, go rotate, and I can rotate the cube, go back to scale, scale that up, go back to move, pull him around like here, go rotate again. Makes it a very, very easy way to control it and move everything around. So the way I set this up, we're going to head back into here, make sure we're under Functions, Cinema 4D, we're on our radial menu. I'm going to go to Move, I'm going to go keystroke, function, click that there, then click keystroke, E, I'm going to set to E, click the E key, have move as the name, and then press OK. Then we're going to go to the middle one is our rotate, click here, keystroke R, name it rotate, press OK. Then we're going to go to scale, keystroke T, scale, press OK. Then once you have that set up, that's going to be pretty much it. This one comes by default usually, but if it's not here, you just click that spot right there, click keystroke, Control S. You have to click on here, you're going to press Control S to put that in. Going to name that save, press OK, and then there you go. So we're going to close this out, and this is pretty much all that I have set up right now, and it seems to work pretty well. I love my Wacom tablet now. It took me about a month to get used to it, but it does definitely speed things up and makes it run much, much smoother. Now before I close this tutorial, there's one extra thing I'd like to talk about, and that's screen proportions. So I'm going to press my radial menu and do Wacom Tablet Properties. That's going to open that up again. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go under Pen Grip or Grip Pen, and this can be all other. You don't have to be for specific applications. You may want to set this up for specific applications depending on what you do. But you're going to click on Mapping. And what I have set up right now is my screen area set to full, and it's force proportions. And what this means is that it's going to force proportion my Wacom to be at the same aspect ratio as what I have set up here. Now if you have only one monitor, you don't even have to do any of this. You can just skip this entire part I'm talking about now, because this is only if you have two monitors like I have, which I highly recommend having, especially if you're doing Cinema 4D or After Effects work, because it definitely does make it easier to hop back and forth. But the way this works is it takes my big 16 by 9 aspect ratio monitor here, and I believe this is a 4 by 3 monitor here, much smaller one, and essentially hooks them together as one instead of having to hop from monitor to monitor, because what you'd have to do, other ways of doing it, which would be your display toggle. I just click functions and you're going to click display toggle, and this would just toggle between both displays. You go monitor 1, monitor 2, both monitors, monitor 1, monitor 2, both monitors, the three-way of doing it. And you just have a display toggle button set to do that. And you could set that up by clicking functions, touch ring, which that's a whole nother story. I don't even really use my touch ring that much, so I'm not going to talk really about how to use that. But do like express keys, and you could say this button on the top here, you're just going to click that, and you're just going to go through switch application, show desktop, display toggle, here it is. So that means that your pen is going to hop back and forth. I'm not going to turn it on, but what that means, if I would push this top key, if I had that set to my display toggle, I have it just set to touch turn and off right now. But if I'd have that on, I'd press it once, and it would pop me over to my other monitor here on the left. And that means my entire Wacom tablet screen would take up this entire thing. So I'm going to turn force proportions off, and this entire screen here, now, if I go to the bottom of my tablet, it goes to the bottom. If I go to the top, it goes to the top. If I go to the far left, it goes to the far left. And it would essentially take up this entire screen. So instead of here, I'm going to set it to monitor 1 like this. That means go to top left, and my entire Wacom tablet is confined to my one monitor, essentially, which I found it's great for painting and stuff. So that means you can paint literally on your screen, like your entire tablet is a big canvas and you're getting all that area. I have a medium-sized Wacom tablet, which I highly recommend. The smalls I found to just be too small, so I hear. And I've never actually had one, but that's what I was reading about. And then the large was much, much too big to fit on my desk. But I highly recommend a medium. It's a really good good compromise between the two. But the problem is with having your screen confined to the whole tablet is that I can't get to my second monitor. I go as far left as I can, and it just stops. Like I can't get over there. There's nothing I can do. So what you'd have to do is you'd have to hit that display toggle button, which would then pop my mouse over to this second monitor, and then it would take up my tablet. And I'll just show you, like, here's a quick example. I'll do monitor 2, and now I'm stuck over here. You can't see my mouse because it's out of screen, but now I'm stuck on the little monitor. So I don't have to go grab my mouse now to actually pull back over so you can actually see where it is, because if I put my pen down, I'm stuck over there. And I found this pretty annoying to keep pushing a button to hop back between the two. I really just wanted to be able to slide back and forth like I did with a mouse just on my tablet. So what you do is do full range. You're going to go to this setting. So to get there, you're going to do all other, grip pen, and then monitor 2. Or sorry, not monitor 2, screen area. So you're going to click on that, and don't set it to monitor 1 or monitor 2. Click full. And now what it does, it fills up this entire area. But now the problem is, and this is going to be by default, force proportions are going to be turned off. And that means your entire tablet is still being used, and you can go throughout the entire screen. Now I'm going to show you the one problem this has. It'll still work, and your mouse still moves around, but here's a problem that can arise from that. If I'm trying to draw a circle, since our aspect ratio on here is very wide, but my tablet is not near as wide, I'm going to try to draw a perfect circle in real life on my tablet. This is how it turns out. I drawed a circle relatively in real life, but notice, like, I drew a circle in real life, but it's coming out oblonged. That's because the tablet is being distorted. It's being warped. So if we turn force proportions on, now all of a sudden I'm using a lot less of my tablet screen. It's forcing my tablet into a new shape, so this is to the T accurate. So when I'm in the top left corner of my tablet, it's going to be in the top right corner of my screen. If I go to the middle of my tablet, it comes to between these two screens roughly. So the middle of my tablet, like right about here, will put me here at the edge. And if I keep going to the far left, it'll bring me over to my other monitor, and vice versa. And if I go halfway down to my tablet at this spot, I'm at the bottom of my screen. But if I try and draw a circle now that force proportions is on, watch what happens. It's a real circle. Now it's a pretty rough circle, but it's actually going to come out right tack sharp in how it's accurately meant to draw. So your shapes, it's going to be much easier. So I highly recommend turning that on. And that's why I also recommend having a medium-sized tablet, because it is going to shrink your screen. It's kind of weird and kind of bothersome sometimes, knowing that you paid for a tablet that's this big, but you're only going to be using this small of a proportion of it. But trust me, you get used to it, and it's really not such a big deal. It ends up becoming a very comfortable way of working after a while of getting used to it. But that's it for the screen proportions. This is pretty much it for the tutorial now. After you have your force proportions set up and your screen area set to full, you have your hotkeys set up under Functions in Cinema 4D. Your pen set up to be under Pen, to be a right click for the top, a middle mouse click for the bottom, and under Functions you have your modifier keys. It's all set up on this side and that side. You're pretty much ready to go. The only thing I'd recommend is go under Touch and disable that, because that can get annoying. And make sure your gestures and stuff, we already disabled that in another menu under, go right click, Control Panel, Hardware and Sound, Pen and Touch. And we've already been over this. Make sure that you have press and hold turned off for right click. Click on that, let that load, make sure that is disabled, and make sure your flicks are turned off right there. And I already have under touch, enable touch input is turned off. Once you have all that done, you're ready to roll, and your Wacom tablet is going to be ready to make some crazy stuff. Highly recommend using it. I hope that my video helped you, and I know I stumbled around a little bit. It's my second tutorial that I've ever made, so if you have any recommendations on what you'd like me to do better, what I could improve on, please let me know. Like this video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't like it, and if your feelings are a little bit more complicated than that, please feel free to leave a description underneath the video. And thanks again for watching.